Welcome back, and thanks so much for joining us here on this Sunday night. I'm Amy Nay. So he's a former cop turned newspaper columnist, but his column is laden with humor. It's satire, often directed toward the LDS Church. And this week's Person to Person, Shauna Lake sits down with the Salt Lake Tribune's Robert Kirby.
Robert Kirby is known for his writing of satire that often involves Mormons and religion, but that's not all that's behind this man and his pen. He also writes about those close to his heart. And this week, I sit down with him person to person. Why do you think people enjoy your sense of humor so much and what you speak about?
Well, I think at the heart of it, everybody's somewhat of a cynic. You know, when you reach a certain age and the innocence of youth is finally gone, you tend to be cynical about things and state things that way quite a bit. And so I think it works in terms of the delivery. Sometimes the subject doesn't always resonate well with cynicism, but it's what I got.
Explain where that comes from inside.
I was a military brat, and we moved here when I was a teenager. So I was taken right out of the end of my junior year, and we relocated to Utah. And we'd lived prior to that all over the world, and my parents were very staunch LDS, and they're from this area, so I had an LDS upbringing, Utah Mormon upbringing, but I got it in faraway places. And so when this opportunity came from my father to get orders for Fort Douglas, he took it thinking, oh yeah, we're going back to Zion where everything will be great. And we got here and I hated it. It took me a long time to get over that. Utah can be a huge culture shock even for Mormons.
You started as a journalist, but you certainly didn't start as a named columnist that everybody knows and recognizes at the store.
There was no intention of going out to be a humorist from the very beginning, and that occurred entirely by accident when I wrote this column one day for the editorial page in the newspaper I was working for, titled 5 Kinds of Mormons. And I explained all the ways how to recognize the various types of Mormons.
And everyone related to it.
Yeah, and I still see, that was 20-something years ago, and I still see that column stuck to refrigerators. The editor didn't particularly care for it, but when the responses came flooding in that people wanted more of this, I realized maybe there's something to this. Maybe the stuff that used to get me into trouble can actually be parlayed into a career.
I want to know the personal part, your wife, your children, your girls, your family.
I've been married for 38 years to the same woman. I have 3 daughters, 8 and a third grandchildren. I did not know that I would enjoy being a grandfather as much as I do. I mean, I did not see that coming. You hear people talk about it, being a grandparent is the greatest, and it is. You just teach your grandchildren you share a common enemy, and they're your friends for life. And grandchildren are a great way to get even. You
write in your column all the time about your wife, and you write about different things, but you never really write about going to church with her. You write so much about the Mormon aspect of your life, but you never really write about her and going to church with her and that experience.
You're trying to get me into trouble, aren't you?
A little bit.
Well, you're right. I never write about her in that context because there really isn't one. I met my wife on our missions together in South America. She was a missionary too, and we had that typical Mormon marriage where you come home from your mission and you marry the first girl who maintains eye contact with you. Well, she left the church about 15-20 years ago, became a mainstream Christian. She goes to a local community church, and that's why I don't write about her where I go to church, is I live in a split faith household now.
Has that been hard for you?
I think it was hard for both of us. Probably at the peak of our dissatisfaction over the situation of religion in our lives, she was diagnosed with cancer. And so while we were disagreeing a lot over religion, suddenly this huge monster that you can't negotiate with comes along. And it put things into perspective. And while it's horrible, there's also a positive side to it, because suddenly the differences that we had over religion or where we went to church mattered a lot less. Because I worked from home, I was her primary care person. She lived in bed for months during the chemo and the radiation, and it was like watching the person you loved the most in life get burned alive. And I would go in the afternoon sometime when she had taken her meds and she'd gotten all quiet, and there were times I would go in there and she looked dead, and I'd touch her to see if she was cold. And we got lucky in that we beat the odds and came through it. She's very healthy now. But it doesn't, something like that changes your life, changes your outlook. You realize there are things in life that you simply can't negotiate with. You have to get through them. And you either find it in yourself to do that, or you don't.
Robert Kirby, so good to get to know you even better.
Thank you very much.
Person to person.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you'd like to see additional parts of Shauna's interview with Robert Kirby, including his favorite columns he's written, you can visit our website, KUTV.com. Person to Person is every Sunday night on 2 News at 10 and is sponsored by Zions Bank. That was so touching. Really so neat to get to know him a little bit better.